A jet fighter when I'm driving my car.
I never.
Dr. Farouk, how are you, sir?
Great. Good morning.
Did we lose Tim?
Yeah, it looks like Tim may have crashed his jet airplane there. I don't know.
Jet airplane.
I just want to inform the group. I heard from, this is Anthony Crouch, Regional Advisor for EDD. I believe I heard from LA County or Foothill just texted me that they're having problems seeing the YouTube channel right now. They just have a blank screen.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention. Or Clemente, I'm assuming you guys will be looking at that, right?
Yes. And I texted Tim, let him know that we lost him. So I'm pretty sure he's trying to log back in.
Okay. I'm just waiting for Tim to get back and confirm that we have a quorum, and then we'll proceed.
Yeah, he's saying he's trying to get back in.
Apologies for that.
No worries, Tim. I defer to you when we have a quorum, but in fact, because I have to read a few things, I'm just going to get the meeting started now.
That's perfect.
Whenever you're ready, just let me know the quorum. So I'm calling our executive committee meeting to order at 10:04 a.m. Good morning, everyone. And I'm going to go through those notes on our meeting process for today. This meeting is being conducted on the Zoom platform. Only executive committee members and staff are on the Zoom meeting. The public can view this meeting via live stream on the Workforce Development YouTube page. I know there's some difficulty, so we're working on getting that back up. A link to the YouTube page, meeting agenda, and board packet information can be found on our website, cwdb.ca.gov, under State Board Meetings and Archives. A recording of this meeting is going to stay on the YouTube page. Public comment is now open and will be accepted via email at boardpubliccomment@cwdb.ca.gov. All emails will be read aloud during the public comment period noted on the agenda and will be included in the meeting minutes as part of the public record. We can allow for 3 minutes for each comment. Executive members will be on mute, and I'm happy to recognize you. If you would like to request to speak, just type speak into the chat function, and we can recognize you, or you can use the raised hand feature, either way, whatever is convenient. And if you want to just write in your question in the chat box, you can do that as well. Please note that anything that is typed in the Zoom chat box is included in the meeting minutes as part of public record. So Tim, do we have a quorum now?
We do, Mr. Chair. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. So we can proceed to our action items section of the agenda, starting with the consideration of approving November 3rd meeting summary. You can find this on page 4 of your agenda packet. Are there any questions or discussion?
I'll move approval, Dr. Farouk Jamil.
Okay, before we do that, Jamil, do we have any public comment that was emailed to us?
Sorry.
We do not at this point.
Okay, so we have a motion from Jamil. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Bruce.
Second from Bruce. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any abstentions or nays?
I will abstain.
Sandra abstains. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. We'll now proceed to our second action item, LA County Foothill Local Area Modification Consideration for Approval. This item can be found on page 10 of your agenda packet. The governor, as you know, has the authority to modify local workforce area jurisdictions. The process is that EDD receives a request from local area for modification. In this case, the city of Monrovia is seeking to leave one local workforce jurisdiction, Foothill, and join another, LA County. LA County submitted the request for modification to EDD back in October. EDD then provides an analysis of the impact of the change, including on job seekers' ability to receive services, and makes a recommendation to the board. Our board must formally approve or deny the request. The recommendation here is to approve the request for modification from staff and to forward the item to the full board for action. It then goes to the Labor Secretary for final action on behalf of the governor. And before we take a motion, I know Marissa Clark can provide more of an overview, and we also have Anthony from EDD as well to provide more context. Marissa, did you want to go first, or Anthony?
Sure, I'll kick it off and then Anthony can help chime in. Good morning, everyone. So as was just kind of touched upon, California has like a formal policy directive that outlines a process for undergoing a local area modification. And a key part of that process is the in-depth analysis that's conducted by EDD that really helps the state determine whether or not to approve or deny a request. And so the entire analysis, along with other supporting information, is contained in your agenda packets. I'll touch briefly on just a couple key highlights, but like was mentioned, Anthony, who authored the analysis, is here on the line with us, and he's the regional advisor for the impacted local areas. He was really amazing and instrumental in keeping this process moving smoothly at the state level, so a huge thank you to him. So a couple just key highlights are, first, that analysis of the CalJobs participant data indicated that LA County currently actually spends more WIOA training funds on residents of Monrovia than the Foothill Local Board currently is. Another key highlight is that currently residents of Monrovia must travel to Pasadena or West Covina for in-person WIOA services. However, the Los Angeles County Local Board has discussed actually placing WIOA Title I staff at the Monrovia Community Adult School to help allow for greater access for the Monrovia residents. And lastly, 3 cities within the Foothill Consortium have publicly supported this modification request. And while in your packets, it may indicate their initial opposition, the Foothill Workforce Board recently held a special meeting and voted to remove their objection to the modification. And they definitely maintain that they have done a good job providing services, but believe each individual city has a right to choose whether or not to remain in the partnership. So that's just kind of a very high level. We want to open it for any kind of questions about the process or the information that was discovered while we went through it.
Thank you, Marissa. We have a question from Bob.
Yep.
First, I have to unmute. Okay. Thank you. You know, we received a lot of information, a huge amount of letters of support. There doesn't seem to be much question about this, but I just as a, just interested. So what's the downside for Foothill, and how do they make up the loss of losing Monrovia to their board?
I'll defer to Anthony on that because he knows these boards really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the economic impact of Foothill, I believe we're looking at about approximately $136,000 that would be lost for adult dislocated worker and youth services. Those numbers are based on past projections. Each local area is awarded a dollar amount each year of WIOA funds based on a calculation of how many unemployed they have in their local area and how many people they have on a public assistance. With that said, there are a few things. Citizens from Monrovia still could come to Foothill AJCC because of consumer's choice under WIOA, and they would receive basic career services. Now, Foothill, what they may decide is with their training dollars, if they have too many people from Monrovia, they might refer them to LA County, and that would be one way to mitigate the cost, since training costs tend to be the most expensive cost.
Okay, thanks.
Our next question is from John Brower.
Thanks, Angelo. I've got, well, one is I checked in with a couple of my labor representatives on the board. They were indicating it was sort of part of the Foothill board was kind of saw it as a done deal. And I think that was part of it, kind of moving forward. I had sort of a similar question to Bob's, which is, I know, like I sit on the City of Oakland board, and its size is such that it had to get consideration from the governor and the board and EDD around maintaining itself as a board. What does losing Monrovia as a city do in terms of the overall size of Foothill as an entity that we recognize? I was curious about that.
Sure. So right now, Foothill is made up of 6 local areas. So Monrovia leaving would reduce them to 5 local areas. They'd have roughly the population of San Luis Obispo, which is 294,000 for the local area, and receiving approximately the same amount of funds. So they would receive approximately 1,385,000. So they would essentially look like San Luis Obispo after Monrovia was to leave. Now, with that said, certain entities that have a footprint in the region rather than just within the city of Monrovia. So for businesses that expand beyond just Monrovia, they could continue to work with the local Foothill board if they choose to do so, or if Foothill choose to have them on the board. And the same with other entities who aren't just located within Monrovia.
Okay, so that's not gonna, the reduction in size isn't such a reduction that it's later on going to require looking at them as a board.
No, based on our analysis, there are other local areas would have roughly the same amount of funding and same amount of population. So the EDD's analysis did not think that was an issue at this time.
Okay, thank you. Good.
Thank you, John. Our next question is from Bruce.
Thank you. I think a question and maybe 2 comments. And one, I think the question was answered or addressed by John, but I guess maybe Anthony, I'd ask a question just a little differently. In your analysis, did you identify sort of any reasons that EDD or other constituents thought this wouldn't be a good idea, understanding that they eventually capitulated, and I've gone through the comments. And then before you answer that, and I'm not sure there's an answer, 2 comments. One, this is actually not only just really good work, thank you for the staff work on this, but really encouraging in 2 ways. One, we actually are seeing sort of a collaboration about how 2 areas are making sure they're talking to each other, whether this was contentious or not, but are collaborating and making sure that clients come first, I guess is what I'm saying. And even more so, that the debate here was really about how many dollars dedicated to training can we actually get versus other kind of process administration. You know, too often these debates devolve to who's in charge and who's got the administrative money. And this was really driven, it appears, about client need relative to the share of dollars that are actually going to skill enhancements. If that's correct, and I think it is, I am encouraged. That's all. Thanks.
Yeah, so I'll just weigh in a little bit further. So yes, the one con that EDD explored was the potential fiscal impact to Foothill being reduced in size and reduced on dollar amount. Like I said, there is a few things that could alleviate the reduction of funds, and that's reduction of who receives training, who are the people they're providing training to. The second one is that, although it's not in the package, is that there was discussions with LA County, and LA County does provide funds to Foothill, and depending if the number of individuals increase for certain programs, LA County may provide more funds. And then the other con, which EDD did not explore because it's more of a discussion at the local level, is that the city of Monrovia, there was a number of briefings to them to explain to them what would happen if they leave Foothill for LA County. First being that because Foothill is only made up of 6 local areas, that Monrovia currently has more of a voice in the Foothill local area than they do the LA County, than they would have once they go to LA County, as LA County is made up of 57 cities. But Monrovia has received those briefings, so they understand that choice, and they still wanted to move forward with LA County for moving to the LA County local board.
Bruce has one follow-up question.
Yeah, I almost forgot, and I skimmed through this, read through this the other day. There seemed to be a dust up about the dependence on training funds from South Bay. Can you comment on whether there's any storm behind the little dust up, or that was simply a misunderstanding of a relationship, or?
It's a misunderstanding because the funding that was discussed there in those notes was dedicated to working in hospitality, specifically with the Hospitality Training Academy. And so those participants were actually all over the county, not just in the Foothill jurisdiction. So I think there was a real misunderstanding there behind those comments.
I thought that might be important to get clarified just for the, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Diane?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just remembering from years ago where Foothill was a quite innovative and progressive workforce board compared to the county, which was very bureaucratic and I didn't think as well managed. I mean, that was maybe 10, 12 years ago. So what this sounds like to me on that is that, you know, it's just for the city of Monrovia and it's just kind of a logistical thing. But I just wondered, particularly Tim, if, you know, our good friends who used to be there have retired. Are they okay with this? Yeah, a little bit of the backstory. Yeah. If you can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much to say about Foothill, but I will agree with you, Diane, that Foothill has always been sort of on the cutting edge, small, nimble. So I don't want to disparage Foothill because I think they still have a lot of really great things going on. I think what else is happening is that LA County is not the same as it used to be. You have very forward-looking supervisors who are really taking on the way things used to be done and looking to chart a new, very progressive path when it comes to workforce development. And I think part of this is that Monrovia saw that as really enticing. You know, aside from just the basic stuff where a lot of the people who reside in Monrovia were getting services from LA County already, and not from Foothill. And that could be just logistics. But I think LA County is turning a new page, maybe a whole new chapter.
Dan, yeah.
Yeah, I've been involved with that, you know, kind of on the periphery, but consulted on, you know, different aspects of that transformation. And I have high hopes, but it is yet to be seen.
Fair enough. Yeah, agreed.
Thank you, Dan. John?
Thanks, Diane.
Has a fault.
I was just wondering about the state's ability to sort of hold them to that promise of having somebody in the adult that as part of this. That's a question, I guess.
Sorry, this is Marissa. I don't know if there is any statutory backing, because what gets tricky with co-location is within the federal law, the definition defines access in a few different ways. You can have like co-location, you can have kind of cross-training or what they call real-time access. So I think there are limits in terms of the state mandating a certain individual be physically placed. However, we can highly encourage, or if there are some mitigating access issues, we can try and provide technical assistance through that. But in terms of the federal law, there's only so much we can kind of enforce.
Understood. I just hope it's not a false promise, I guess.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone, for that spirited discussion. And we appreciate your work, Marissa and Anthony, on this process. We can entertain a motion.
I'll move approval. It's Bruce.
Bruce moves motion to approve. Any second?
I'll second. It's Bob.
Second by Bob. Do we have any public comments?
No public comments.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone abstaining or are there any nays? Okay, motion carries, and we'll now proceed to the full board. Thank you, everyone. We'll now go to our updates and discussion, starting with Labor Agency, and we have Abby Snee here to speak on behalf of the Labor Secretary.
Thank you, Angelo, and good to see everybody here today. Really want to focus on the appointment of a new EDD director, which you probably all know about, and also go through some of the really exciting and huge and potentially transformative proposed budget investments that are going to the Labor Agency. So I'm assuming that you saw the governor's announcement last week, last Friday, that Nancy Farias only Tuesday, was sworn in as the new director for EDD. She has been there since 2020 as deputy director and takes the reins over from Rita Sands, who's been there for 2 years. So Nancy has a long background in state service and also working for SEIU, and brings history and stability and a commitment to quality and innovation. So I think we're all really excited to have her in that role. And then to shift gears, let me go through with you some of the investments, a summary of the investments in the governor's Jan 10 proposal that would come through the Labor Agency. So Miranda, thank you for the slides, and you could move on to the next slide. So the budget investments proposed for the Labor Agency really cluster in 5 major areas, and we can go through all of these: healthcare, climate justice, immigrant workforce, UI transformation, and worker protection. Next slide, please. So in healthcare, and you have probably all seen this, there is a new collaboration between the Health and Human Service Agency and the Labor Agency and our internal partners, including the State Board, EDD, ETP, for a $1.7 billion investment in healthcare workforce that it could be transformative, will be far-reaching, has about a dozen projects and programs under it, ranging from funding to support psychiatric residencies, funding to train 25,000 community health workers by 2025, training for social workers, for opioid and other substance abuse workers, a few investments really targeted towards English language learners. And these are distributed between the Health and Human Service Agency departments and the Labor Agency. What is really exciting about this is the partnership. CHHS is a regulator, a payer, an employer, and together working with the Labor Agency and our expertise, our collective expertise in workforce, can really build high quality pipeline programs and improve the quality of some of the lower wage jobs in healthcare. The funding that is recommended directly to the Labor Agency are these 3 pieces. There would be $90 million that would go to ETP to support entry-level training and career advancement training for workers in health and human services, with $40 million designated to social worker training. Those of you who know ETP well know how important this is, because so many healthcare institutions and nonprofits and other entities, that government entities that hire social workers do not pay into the fund and are not eligible for ETP training. So this really extends access to this training for workers in healthcare. And we will want to be very deliberate and intentional around how those investments are targeted. funding that would go through the Workforce Services branch at EDD would be 60 million to replicate and adapt a very successful program that's been going on for a long time in Alameda County that trains, it started training youth with justice involved youth and other opportunity youth, is now somewhat more open, but a comprehensive, those short-term training that has been very successful in getting about 200 young people working as EMTs, really the very entry level tier on a paramedic track, working with the private ambulance providers in Alameda County. This has a youth focus, this has an equity focus, this fills the needs across the state, especially in rural areas, for emergency medical technician. And so we're really excited about the opportunity to replicate this around the state. And then there would be 340 million coming to the state board for high road training partnerships that would focus in healthcare. What I think we're envisioning as we build out the whole initiative and see where there are gaps in training, this could be a really great place for HRTP to focus. Next slide, Miranda. And there are just a few slides, and then I'm happy to take questions. So in terms of climate justice, there will be 100 million going to set up a new goods movement training campus at the Port of LA. 50 million that will be going through Workforce Services branch. That is really a worker displacement fund to be able to provide income support, support services, new training for people, for oil and gas workers who are likely to be displaced from the workforce. There will also be another 15 million. I think, Tim, you could talk more about this coming to the state board, because I know you're really digging into this now to develop a high road approach to well capping and just learning about that industry. And then there will be 60 million also going to the state board to restart and really pick up where the CARB climate change plan left off in supporting workforce development in programs aligned with climate change. And then I think there's the prospect of some other climate related investments to come in later phases of the budget. Do you want to add to that, Tim? I think you're closer to some of those specifics. You're on mute.
On the 60 million?
Either the 15 million or the 60 million.
Yeah, just real quickly, this is really great, Abby. On the oil capping, it is part of a kind of like the healthcare. It's part of a much larger initiative. $200 million invested in orphan well capping, and the funding that's coming to the state workforce board or proposed to come to the state workforce board would be to train up that workforce. And our approach would be, the high road, industry engagement, pathways into good jobs. There's also a focus on targeting oil and gas workers who may be affected by other things happening that you all are probably fairly aware of, but not exclusively. So we're keeping open the option of other folks getting pathways into these jobs. What we've dug into, no pun intended, is that these are highly skilled workers. It require a lot of training, but there are other parts of the industry where these skills do exist that are transferable and that we can build upon. So we're looking for really strong labor management partnerships in industry to sort of build out that. But we're really early stages of having really interesting conversations, both with industry and with the resources agency that is putting out that larger bucket of money. And just one last thing on this is something that Abby and I talk about a lot, and it's a focus of the state board. It's really connecting those infrastructure investments in a way, language standards, opportunities in procurement to really pull people into those good jobs. So it's connecting that supply and demand that we're after with this. That's the oil capping.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. And I know that Tim and you and your team have already also started work with the Department of Transportation to anticipate the funding coming down from the federal infrastructure plan for transportation.
That's right.
Where there's an intent from Department of Transportation in Washington for these to go to good jobs and apprenticeships. So I think we're just really excited to be part of that from the beginning. Next slide, Miranda, please. Thank you. And then with 30% of the state's workforce born in countries other than the US, there are a series of very exciting investments to really build the immigrant workforce and create new pathways. There will be 30 million going through the Workforce Services branch to build our partnerships with the adult schools, with the community colleges, and really accelerate the adoption of integrated education and training for English language learners who are not yet in the workforce, or I think we could probably amend this in low-wage jobs and helping them move up. And you may be familiar with the Washington IBEST model. This is a model that really accelerates training by teaming up a English language instructor with a vocational skills instructor so that people don't have to do the old-fashioned sequential get to English level 300 before you can enroll in this training program. Very well documented, good body of research on the effectiveness of this. And Javier, is there anything you want to add on IET? I know you're really an expert in this.
No, other than we're not starting from a blank slate. I mean, we have some pilots, English learner pilots for IET, which, you know, if nothing else, it's giving us a lot of insight as to where we're beginning with, because what's really behind IET will be a partnership between adult education and workforce and CBOs. CBOs have bolstered the adult education side's insight into this community. And we think likewise, adult education will bolster workforce as far as ability to outreach this community. So we're looking forward to actually creating this incentive to accelerate that development between the linkages of those two systems. And I maybe add that adult education in California, how we defined it from the state perspective, is K through 12 adult ed and non-credit in the community college side. So there's a lot there for us to grow.
And there is some good work going on. We just want to see more of it and support more of it. There will also be 20 million going to ETP, again, with general fund dollars, which will be more flexible than the ETP dollars for workplace literacy to really help workers and employers build English language skills, digital literacy to increase both retention and career advancement. And then there will be 10 million that will go directly to the California Youth Leadership Corps, which is a new program some of you may have heard about that came out of the Governor's Recovery Task Force that engages young adults, primarily opportunity youth who have gotten passionate about social justice, racial justice, who are either in community college or through this program get connected to community college to do work-based learning internships in social justice organizations with relevant career pathways and a ton of wraparound support. And this particular component, and that program has piloted this year, will create a pathway in legal services for immigrants. There is a huge need for legal interpreters for immigrant services, some of those actually on campus that have been set up for Dreamers on community college campuses. And so this will create a pool of legal interpreters and put young people on a pathway to paralegal or legal careers. Next slide, Miranda, please. And I can go through this pretty quickly. And then there are investments to pay down some of California's debt. And you can imagine how large the debt is if $3 billion is a payment to continue funding to combat fraud and improve the customer service experience. And then to another 16.3 million to enhance cybersecurity and fraud detection and mitigation. And then another $1.5 million for UI Command Center Division. And then just the last slide, Miranda. Thank you. On worker protection, this will help implement some of the legislation that was passed and the governor signed last year for the Department of Industrial Relations to enact these policies, DIR and the Labor Standards Enforcement Division. So let me stop and see if it looks like we've got a few questions.
Yes, we'll start with Bob Redlow.
Thank you. Hi, Abby. Nice to see you.
Hi, Bob.
Hey, that's a phenomenal report. I mean, I can't remember when I saw so much money.
This is just
last year.
Yeah, last year. Yeah. Well, anyway, so I have a couple questions and a comment. And so first, just to clarify, and I wasn't sure if I heard this right. So the 90 million for healthcare, and then another 20 million for ETP for some other issues you talked about. You said something about relaxing the barriers of ETP. Does that mean that we'll be able to use that money for folks that don't contribute to the fund? Is that what you meant by that or not?
Yes, it is, because these will be general fund dollars. They will not be coming from the ETP fund.
So, but they'll be going through, you'll have to apply for those funds through ETP.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. And that's huge.
I think it's great. I know.
I mean, that's the barrier.
I know.
And, we've been running these health programs and, we go to place people at UCSF or other places.
I know.
And, we can't get reimbursed, and they're huge employers, at least in health employers. So that's a really, really, really huge change and big deal for us. So thank you.
Limited term, limited dollars, but certainly start thinking about partnerships.
Right.
And UCSF is a great example.
Yeah. And so second of all, real quickly, so you mentioned the EMT program down in Alameda, which we're very familiar with in Contra Costa, as you know. And we've taken that program and tried to reproduce it in other parts of the state. And one of the areas that we've increased that program is the partnership with the community colleges and making that program accredited so that folks can get college credit for taking the EMT program. Easy entry level to healthcare, many jobs from an EMT. We actually have almost 25% of our EMT folks who go through that program actually follow up in a career pathway and become nurses, not just EMT. So that you're mentioning that is tremendous. That is a huge, and people have recognized that EMT is a terrific way to enter healthcare jobs. So I just wanted to comment on that and say that look at the Alameda program, look at the Contra Costa program, but look at the other programs, and we should reproduce that throughout the whole state.
That's exactly the intent. And I would actually like to learn more about the Contra Costa program and the college credit. Could we follow up on that offline?
Yeah. And we also braided funds for that from like 4 or 5 different sources, included WIOA funds for those folks that were qualified for that. So that's a great model to look at, and we hope to reproduce that. And then lastly, I just want to mention, we've been working quite hard in the Bay Area on the Good Jobs Initiative. And there are a number of regions, I think, in my recollection, and I've been around for a while now, in my recollection, where folks are actually working together instead of filing competitive grant applications. They're actually realizing that coming together and doing one, it will be a better chance of getting those federal funds. And I just want to make sure, and what your take is on this, that we're coordinating and braiding those funds with these funds that are out there, that we're not operating in separate spaces. Because that Good Jobs Initiative, I mean, in the Bay Area, that's like $30 million or $40 million. So in LA, it's another $40 or $50 million. In Sacramento, another $20 million. So I just want to make sure that we're taking a look at this, and from your perspective, and how we're braiding these together, because they're all covering the same types of training.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. And I know that application time was extended, but those should be due early February, right?
Right.
And then what's the turnaround time for funding notification? Do you know?
I believe it's supposed to be from 90 to 120 days.
So it's pretty quick. So that'll be
Yeah.
really well timed because then we'll know which projects in California are funded as we get ready to roll out these other ones. That's a great call.
Right. Okay, that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to John now.
Thanks, Angela. A couple things. One is you actually, Diane is as much an expert as anybody, including Bob. So there's actually a couple of members of the EC that have worked on this EMT, EMS kind of pathway piece.
Yeah.
So Abby, I hope you talk to her too in that.
Absolutely.
Just a bit of an observation as somebody who does quite a bit of business with ETP. I am somewhat skeptical on both the capacity to take on a lot of what's in this budget, which I think are worthwhile initiatives, and likewise, I hope there's a discussion, and I think there needs to be an education, not necessarily with the leadership there, but maybe the panel and others around what high road partnerships actually look like, and issues around equity. They have had at times, I think, not fully sort of understood the interrelationship of some of those. So as this goes forward, I hope that there's actually extreme guidance put on these and or some conversations, frankly, to make this work, whether that's in the immigrant piece or the medical or the other aspects of this, and not just take it as a given. They do have a history of both with AB 118 and other monies of starting to put monies out that aren't part of their prime. So that's great in that end. But
yeah, I think sorry to interrupt. It just sounds like you're saying that this just has to be done very, very thoughtfully and carefully, and acknowledge that this is different, and would love to just learn more.
And that it's moving. There are standards in there, but they're not necessarily sort of the same framework that say Tim and the board has put on high road partnerships of either the construction or the other pieces. So I think there's some learning and some guidance that's going to need to come with that.
It's a great call.
Not just that they're a means to get the money out, I guess.
Yes.
In that and stuff. But yeah, all of this is very, very exciting. So thanks, Abby.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's a great call.
And we have been moving closer to ETP on the high road stuff. They've been doing a lot of work with their panel around high road and defining quality jobs and those kinds of things. So there is a movement together, very intentional, with ETP, Reg, and Peter Cooper leading a lot of that discussion. On the construction side, it's been lockstep, and I think even on the 118 work, it was pretty lockstep. We're really entirely on the same page.
Thank you, John. A quick question, Abby. Is the PowerPoint going to be shared with the board?
Miranda has it, so she could send it out.
Okay, perfect. If Miranda can please do that. The next comment or question is from Joseph Williams.
I just wanted to echo the comments about how exciting, and there's a lot of good work out there. My congressman introduced some legislation. It didn't go through, I think it was HR 20 something, but it was around advertising and public relations, and just thinking about communities who don't necessarily participate in some of these opportunities or get access to workforce resources. There are multiple communities that are disproportionately impacted when you think about the amount of money that comes out from the Employment Training Agency, from DOL, and then even from the state. And so I'm just thinking about like how we get the word out. And, the state chancellor, Eloy, sends the board a weekly newsletter, email update about the community college system. Maybe consider at least a monthly communications to keep us up. Because unless you know what newsletter to be a part of, like I didn't get the governor's thing that you were talking about. And so like it would be helpful if you guys could tell me what listservs I should be on. But then just how do we get the word out? How do we just make sure that communities who don't traditionally participate in submitting proposals for some of this kind of stuff become aware? And if there's anything that we as board members, or at least that I can do to spread the message in my community, just let me know. And your staff has been great in coming out and doing webinars But if there's more we can do to just disseminate information, you can't, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink, but at least if we can say, hey, look, we're putting the information out there, we'll love to be supportive and help out in any way I can. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. And what I'm hearing in your comments is talking both about organizations who could get involved as well as individuals. Because this is kind of a once in a generation opportunity, and we really want to get as many young people as we can into these good jobs where there is tremendous need. I mean, that's what's so exciting about this moment in time, right?
I'm struggling with because folks oh, I can't find a job. I'm like, there's so much opportunity. There's so much resources out there right now. There's no reason to be broke or if you really get at it. And so it's just kind of curtailing information for people so that they can easily access it and easily digest it. I'm learning that a lot of times people are not really reading real dense information right now. And so my point is, if there's any way, I can help with disseminated information, would like to be part of that.
Thank you. That would be great.
Thank you, Joseph. And I appreciate your comment, Bob, regarding our former colleague, Rita Sines, and her service at ADD.
Yes.
Thank you, Abby, for that fantastic presentation. And Miranda will circulate that to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you for your help, Miranda. Oh, sorry.
So we'll now move on to our state workforce staffing update, and Curtis will lead us on that effort.
Thanks, Angelo. Hello to the committee members. I'll keep this pretty quick. We had mentioned previously at the end of the last exec committee that we're in the process of adding capacity here at the Workforce Development Board, given the amount of work, the workload increase that we've experienced over the last few years, and we're continuing to work with agency and other folks on that, and our partners at EDD to fill the critical positions at the state board to keep up with the workload. Just a couple of quick announcements. We've added a couple of new people. I just wanted to highlight Evelyn Kuzmenko is a new IT associate, Kay Chin in our finance and business services unit, and Marissa Medeiros also in finance and business services. We also have a new SSM1 communications manager and a champie who was within the organization and accepted that promotional opportunity. Also wanted to let you all know that Chan Sei Chow has accepted an SSM2 manager position in our program unit. She was an internal candidate also, as well as Jamie Glenn, who was an analyst and accepted a promotional opportunity as an SSM1 program manager. Lastly, we had a couple of departures. Some of you may know Cindy Harrington was one of our oversaw a good portion of our program portfolio. She accepted a promotional opportunity with our partner agency over at EDD, and also Emily Sunahara, who managed our finance and business services unit, also accepted a promotional opportunity with another state agency. So wanted to just acknowledge Cindy and Emily and thank them for their service and contributions to the state board, which were great. They contributed a lot and will be missed. So, but we are still in the process. We have, I think, about 10 vacancies posted that we're actively filling now at the state board, and we'll continue doing our recruiting and hiring. So I think with that, I'll see if there's any questions on that update.
Thank you, Curtis. Any comments or questions for Curtis? Okay, we appreciate all the dedication to our staff that are leaving now for their service. Thank you for that update. Our final update is from Pradeep regarding youth policy.
Good morning, everyone. Chair Farouk and members of the board. We've been working on youth policy for the last few weeks, and We are putting together a very short brief about the work that we've done so far. We've still, besides doing a survey that we did with the state local boards, we also have analyzed the local plans, and we've reviewed some of the literature from DOL and other sources to look for, sort of, one, talk about youth policy within the workforce space, but as just we know that youth extends, even from Abby's presentation, extends just beyond just the workforce development space. But just to give you a status report on that, let me start with as a reminder, 75% of youth expenditures should be spent on out-of-school youth, and now it's 50% through the WIO waiver, but that's only till the end of this year. And that is detailed out in the notice, which is WSD 2005. Overall, all of the local boards met the 14 required WIO youth elements and explored approaches to disabled youth and digital literacy. The more proactive ones created partnership not only with local agencies, but with businesses as well, in terms of pre-apprenticeship and paid and unpaid apprenticeships. We've started classifying these local boards in terms of youth engagement. We use the term low, medium, and high tiers, but I don't think that classification is appropriate. We need to find a better way of terminology here. But I'll use the low tier is they all meet the 14 requirements. Going above that, they're doing additional work, focusing on using strategies to focus on youth and youth intervention approaches. And we've seen, I think the board had a presentation from Ventura, for example, on their work-based learning approach, and other workforce local boards have been going above and beyond those 14 required elements. So going forward, what we are looking for is the DOL has a matrix of how youth committees should address, and there are several ways of looking at. One is creating a shared vision, data information for decision making, creating a strategic plan, community resource mapping and addressing the gaps, staff support, oversight, and accountability. So that's the framework the DOL has provided they call it a recipe for success. And while we could use that to look at youth, not only within the workforce development space, using the local boards and also the regional plans, but also in terms of what might be going on in other agencies, particularly in the education space, both at CDE and at the community colleges. We should have this brief completed shortly. I think it has to go first through leadership within the board, and then talk to agency about that. But what we're looking for is guidance about what the next steps might be, and maybe some of the funding that Abby just talked about in terms of both in the adult ed space as well as the community college space might be a place to start. So I'll stop here, and if there are any questions, Tim, back to you.
Thank you, Pradeep. Are there any comments or questions on his report? Okay, thank you, Pradeep. Are there any, Clemente, are there any public comments for any of the different updates and discussion items that we went over?
No public comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. We will now proceed to our initiative updates. And so we're going to do a quick round of updates there, starting with our High Road Field team with Aida Cardenas.
Hi, good late morning, everyone. So I just want to give you some updates on some of the field activities. We actually were able to get into the fields, literally be out there in December. We've had to put a pause on it again, but we're able to engage quite a bit with some of the projects. And so I'll give an update on what we're doing with existing projects and then how we're preparing in developing for new projects as these funding opportunities have continued to open up. Around the high road construction careers in December, and thank you, Jeremy Smith, and joining us in your work there too, and your leadership there. Really, we're able to bring together the different leaders that are leading the HRCC efforts throughout the state that were able to come together in their first in-person community of practice to really learn from one another. Each region is really at a different place with their partnership and their work. And it was a really great opportunity to learn from one another. And we've already heard back that already some projects have begun to implement some of the things that they've learned from their colleagues and really looking at what are the holes or challenges that some regions might have in terms of placement and coordination, looking at their staffing structure and approaching recruitment and connection. And so we've already heard back that some of those changes are happening. So it's really great to create that community of learning as we develop this field of practice. A couple of another, exciting highlight with the HRCC is that there's been a partnership with the Lumina Foundation, who's investing in 3 different areas in the Central Valley, in the Inland Empire, and then in the San Diego Imperial counties to provide those HRCCs the support to partner with community colleges to provide additional support and instruction, especially around vocational ESL and vocational math. To help build more access for underserved communities to access mechanical crafts. So really looking in our, at least from the field component, is working with our projects and the leaders in the projects to identify where are some gaps and try to find solutions, whether it's again shared learning or looking for additional partnerships and resources to support the work. So we're excited about where that's headed and the community really coming together as we hope to continue to expand that work. On the HRTP side, we continue with our 25 high road training projects to do monthly peer-to-peer learning from one another, in addition to informational webinars. We're meeting with the Berkeley Labor Center to design out, we've talked about wanting to build out the long-term vision is this high road institute where workforce practitioners can really learn sort of the A to Z and all the pieces around implementing a high road training partnership in the model. And we're starting with some labs, we're going to start with where each module or each series will have 4 modules to one area of focus in terms of the learning, so that we can design the different labs that will build out to this institute. So more to come on that, but I'm very excited about that piece because we want to look at how do we integrate the existing experience from experienced practitioners in the field and build that in terms of mentoring and coaching as these new projects come about. And, we see that as a really big need. So more to come around that design. We're still in those initial conversations, but hope to have a finalized scope of work for this year very soon. And I wanted to share, I'm going to share some images real quick from some visits that we did in the field in December. And let's see if I do this right. This one. Oops, wrong one. Okay. All right. So this image here is we on what date was this? On December 10th, opened up the Joint Apprenticeship Training Center with IBW 1245 and NECA, which is a joint labor management program, and it's a new training center in Woodland. We had our new secretary come out and visit. Tim was there as well, and some folks from our field team. And this training center out in Woodland is expected to train a couple of thousand workers here in the next couple of years. So we're very excited about that, that we all got the opportunity to see that that opening and up and running. As you can see, there's a lot of folks there who are there to support, and so we're excited to see that to fruition. I know we started initial conversations a couple of years ago, so to see this up and running is great. We were also able to on December 16th visit the Inland Empire Labor Institute, which is one of our HRTPs there in the Inland Empire, focusing on trades and logistics. We also invited our Inland Empire High Road construction careers to do some sharing of their partnership and where they are. We had our new secretary, Palugi, attend and visited with workers, and the thank you for Dr. Farouk for attending. And we also had other members from the board attend our events throughout that day. And the IELI really focuses on looking at how we can convert from and introduce electric trucks into the region, as this is a great environmental impact in the area, and ensure that there's quality jobs and retraining attached to that. And it included the Warehouse Workers Resource Center, the community colleges, the Teamsters, as well as the local board in the area and community colleges. So it's really was an opportunity to convene the different projects that are working in the region to come together and continue to build collaboration. So it's still in the development phase and working with, again, looking at the technology, working with employers that, Teamsters are bringing to the table who are interested in introducing electric trucks to their fleets, and designing what the training needs are. So hoping to get some of those pilots up and running fairly soon. And after that, we also did a visit to the West Water Valley District, and was attended by many stakeholders there in the area. And just to share a little bit about this project is, and in the picture, in one of the group pictures that you see some of the students that participated in that program, the West Water Valley District recognized when we had conversations a couple of years ago that they are in need of, and wanting to recruit from the community into these quality jobs. And so really built upon the model that JVS has in the Bay Area with Bay Works, and now created IE Works. A lot of the work that we do in the field, when we find a need and we know someone has some insight that they can provide, we make those connections of collaboration. And so initiated those conversations again a couple of years ago to do some learning from JVS, and it really turned into JVS really helping incubate and support the work to extend it and hold the work for them. So we've now expanded that partnership to include more than 7 water agencies in the region, and are working with our field team to support that area to include more. So this allows for a standard of training in the region, and working with community-based organizations and the local workforce boards in the area, and community groups like the IE Black Worker Center to create access to these jobs and create a standard of training that all the water agencies sort of are in agreement with, and create pathways as a regional partnership in one industry versus just one employer at a time. Here's some more images of some of the support. And the following day, we also did a visit and a tour of the ports, also within, you see our fearless leader, Mr. Tim Rainey, and again, Secretary Palugi there that participated in that tour, as well as a convening prior to the tour with Ron Herrera from the County Federation of Labor and other partners. I'm gonna stop sharing the pictures, but just wanted to give you some visuals of some of the work and really make convening folks and really doing that partnership building. And the visits from the Inland Empire to the ports, especially around the IELI, the IE Labor Institute around transportation, really taking a look on how those can all play together, what the interdependency is in terms of trades and logistics from the ports to the warehouses in the Inland Empire, and looking at opportunities to collaborate and have, put all these building blocks together and have a greater understanding and commitment from different leaders and stakeholders as we move forward in looking at what the workforce needs are, and how to ensure that, there's a worker voice, there's quality jobs, and that there's workers engaged in the process as everything moves and transitions. It's really important to all be on the same page. And so it was a good setup also to begin to have the conversations at the ports around requirements and setting up a industry panel under AB 639 that we've been tasked with. And Shreyas on Pradeep's team, on our policy team, is working closely with Tim and labor agency and our field team to support the work of that panel as we look at the future of work, at the ports, understanding what the current crisis is now, what the current needs are, where is it going in the future, and how we can get there together, which, as you can imagine, can be very challenging, but it's just important that we roll up our sleeves to really look for solutions. So we're starting that work around AB 639. Tim can maybe want to mention a little bit more about that, but expecting to launch the first convening worker representatives and employer representatives have been appointed and have accepted their appointment, and we'll be launching in those conversations in collaboration and support with UCLA, who will lead the research around the analysis on what the needs are in the future at the port. So a lot of different pieces moving. I'll pause a little bit on that part, and Tim can talk more about 639. But one additional thing is, as we move up to open up and I believe Joel will talk more about the timing and the funding opportunities in the different pots of money, but as we open up the opportunity for additional HRTPs to apply for funds, field team's been meeting and convening with potential projects and really providing technical assistance, advice, connecting dots, really going through the model and sort of sharing the framework of equity, climate, job quality, but also diving into those essential elements, like where's the industry, having industry leadership, worker voice, and a partnership structure, and working with potential projects on how we can best advise them or connect them to other projects that may have some experience that they can share as they look at designing what their program looks like, so that they're best prepared to apply for these upcoming funds. So I'll just pause there if there's any questions. I'll just add, I think we expect to have, potentially double our portfolio in the next 6 months. Yeah. I hesitate to say, but
no, easy peasy, right? Just wanted to add on those early pictures of the IEE, both Jamil and Joseph joined us for those visits, and Dr. Farouk really set the tone at the first meeting and laid out the vision for the IE. It's so compelling. That's kind of putting some context and some form around that work in the IE, which is so important to us. And then at the port, there's a picture that Aida showed of us all at the Port of LA headquarters, the Port Authority, and we're sitting in a room with Ron Herrera and others, and Kent Wong, and again, kind of connecting the vision for the port and the work there to the work in the IE and the whole supply chain in between, in a way that sort of connects it. And it was really, it's an amazing vision that we're excited about building out. And we can get more into detail about that. But it's just one of those projects that really captures your imagination of what what the potential is behind High Road. The 639 process, there's an industry panel that was required in state statute, and that's why we're doing this work it's not the only reason we're doing this work. It actually builds on high road training partnership work we started at the Port of LA. This will include the entire port complex, both the Long Beach and the LA port, and involves how technology, automation in particular, is impacting the workforce, but also the surrounding community around the port complex. It's a labor management approach. So the industry panel's been appointed by the secretary, and as Aida said, we're aiming for our first meeting at the end of February. I think we set a date. I can't recall what day it is at the end of February, but it's coming up soon. So we've been working really closely with Kent Wong and his team at the Labor Center at UCLA in developing the agenda. They're going to facilitate the whole process in addition to putting together all the findings and recommendations that will go to the legislature at the end of the whole process. So it's pretty intensive work, and coming right at the time of the supply chain dust up. So it makes it even more popular, not popular, more focused, more intense.
Thank you, Aida. Thank you, Tim, for those great updates. Does anybody have any comments or questions for either of them? Okay. Before we proceed, I just wanted to note that Sandra Sanchez is actually here. I think this is your first meeting, Sandra. Yeah, okay. She's now interim vice chancellor at the California Community College Chancellor's Office, and she's here on behalf of Chancellor Eloy Oakley. So just wanted to give you a special welcome. So thank you, Sandra. Okay, so we'll now move to the next portion of our agenda item, which is program implementation team, and Joelle will take it from there.
Great, thank you, Dr. Farouk. Good morning, everyone. For program, we are working really hard to get all of our $21-22 available out there in solicitations by June in preparation for the 22-23 budget. So a few updates on where we are. We are finalizing the awards for the WIOA funded HRTPs, which were existing HRTPs to build and scale on those. The Accelerator 10, which was our first initiative that we did in the Salesforce platform, we received 65 applications, and we built a reading and scoring module in Salesforce, and our readers are currently reading on the platform. And we will have those ready for recommendations, those awards ready for recommendation before the end of the month. Then the Regional Equity and Recovery Program, we are dotting I's and crossing T's on that one and getting ready to release that. We built an application for the HRTP, as Aida mentioned, for the large pot of general fund money that we got this last year. We built that application in Salesforce and are currently testing it, and that will be released, I believe, in the next week or two. And then we have begun our stakeholder engagement and conversations around lessons from the prior funding of P2E and breaking barriers, so that we can start framing those two solicitations that will be out late spring, early summer. And then just an update on Salesforce, with Accelerator being the first initiative that we built on the platform, we're developing what we're calling common architecture, and following the process of like the solicitation and everything that goes into grant making into grant management. We're building that common architecture with ETP because they also have the SEED initiative and their paid family leave initiative. And so we're sharing a lot of knowledge with them, and again, building this common architecture so that as we go on to new grant funds, we'll be able to use that architecture to just make changes needed for those initiatives and not have to start from scratch. And then as we go, we're going into building now the grant management piece for Accelerator, and then all future initiatives that includes data capture and reporting and contracting and all those other things that go into grant management. So all of that is being built in Salesforce while we're actually running the programs and running the solicitations for all of those. that is the brief program update. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Joelle. Any comments or questions for Joelle? Okay, thank you, Joelle. We're moving on to our last initiative update with Pradeep on policy, legislation, and research.
Thank you, Chair Farouk. I'll beg your indulgence because I'll be a little longer than usual. Just I want to give a report on the good jobs work that the board, along with the governor's office, is working on. That I'll do that at the end. The data management and administration team is working on finishing up the work on the CalSkills report. There are two reports. One is the Workforce Metrics Dashboard report, and the other is the CalSkills impact analysis done by the California Policy Lab. Both of those reports together meet the legislative requirement. Just to refresh your memory, this is looking at reporting on outputs and outcomes from workforce data provided by 7 state agencies and 11 different training programs. Summary information was presented to the board, and it raised as many questions as it did answers. Those questions will be answered in the subsequent phases of the CalSkills work. The reports are now going through a labor agency for internal review. Leading up to that, we had periodic presentation on the outputs through the Workforce Metrics Dashboard report and outcomes on the CPL impact analysis. We made it, presentations were made to different key informants as well as to the different CalSkills partners. We're getting to get those 2 reports accessible for the website, and they will be sent over to the legislature, if not by the end of this month, definitely by the middle of next month. In addition to that, there's a lot of work going on moving the CalSkills database infrastructure from the 20th century to the 21st century by moving it to the cloud. And so staff is working on building the code to populate the data structures. They're doing internal profiling and data analysis, data profiling and analysis of existing data. They're conducting meetings with data partners to expand the data set. They're working with EDD to get the data for developing further analytics on our non-VOA grant programs. And so, as you know, there's now expanded work on state-funded programs, and we need to collect data and information for those programs. And we're talking about ways we can collect that, not only with the help of our EDD partners, but others as well. We're developing new MOUs for all of our data partners and expanding that. We're looking for additional funding sources, and first, with the goal of establishing an analytical platform for using the CalSkills data, not only internally, but also reporting some of that information out by using tools such as Tableau. And so we're working on that. And finally, we're partnering with CDT for building and the development and testing of the environment for migrating CalSkills to the cloud. I think that's really what the intent. The California Department of Technology is working with us, and EDD is a very critical partner in that work. Moving on to state partnership teams, basically the state partnership team is working at 2 levels. It's building out existing both WIOA and non-WIOA and new agency level and building out existing WIOA and non-WIOA and the new agency level workforce development partnership goals and enhancing local and regional coordination. We're also working with other CWDB branches in terms of developing baseline information about including high road principles, particularly where policy, procurement, and compliance intersect. To that regard, we made two presentations to the one describing the corrections workforce partnership work at the CalFresh Employment Training Partnership Forum. Second, representatives from the Department of Rehab, Department of Development Services, and Department of Education presented on the competitive integrated employment blueprint and discussed local partnership agreements and at the local workforce check-in call. At the back end, CWDB is working to compile a contact list for these LPA representatives from local boards to share with our partners on the CIA blueprint. And at the end, I'll put in the link for the CIA blueprint. CW plans to hold a P2E summit March 1, 2022. Logistic details are being worked out as we speak, as well as reaching out to partners to invite them to speak. There's work going on as we've provided information to you on this on high road climate agency partnerships. We're finalizing and submitting the draft provisions of job quality and job access to propose to the Federal Bureau of Ocean Energy Management for offshore wind energy sales and followed up with discussion with staff from the California Energy Commission. Submitted part of the 2022 CWDB Zero Emission Vehicle Strategy Action Plan to GoBiz. The action plan includes discussion on program development and administration, policy and program alignment, and local guidance to inform the local workforce system about supporting zero emission vehicles market development. We also attended the Solano County Workforce Development Board Directors to learn more about new local businesses involved in climate change mitigation efforts, including solar, thermal, smart cities, and sustainable agriculture. Met with the Department of Industrial Relations and Labor Agency to discuss compliance strategies for the High Road Initiative, including ensuring that policy recommendations we provide on environmental program are creating labor market outcomes and are being adhered to by companies applying for grant opportunities. We attend weekly community-based solutions partner calls hosted by GoBiz, including the ETP and the Office of Planning and Research, to share funding opportunities and the work around economic development. We were able to gather information on ETP funding for the lithium industry, as well as new economic development opportunities happening on the Central Coast that is relevant to offshore wind work. We're also reviewing local plans to look at what local boards are already doing to support local industry, so moving towards an environmental sustainable economy as part of our outreach effort to local boards. With regard to our regional and coordination efforts, we're coordinating, as I said, on the zero emission vehicle strategy with GoBiz, and intend to present some of that information at the next quarterly exchange on February 15th, or a quarterly regional exchange. Coordinated with the program branch to finalize and release the Regional Equity and Recovery Partnership RFA, and we're also planning to hold a summit with the Chancellor's Office on talking about the state's leadership vision for this funding opportunity and importance of each organization's role, that is CWDB and the community colleges and the local board. We collaborated with GoBiz on the Good Jobs Challenge, and I'll talk about that in a few moments. As far as policy is concerned, as all of you know, the state plan modification, the public comment period closes on February 14th. California's final submission is due on to the federal government on March 15th. We are beginning work on local and regional plan modification directive, as well as, and the policy unit is working with EDD to do a national, or has done, that was yesterday, to do a national DOL technical assistance webinar on WEA memoranda of understanding. With legislation, bill introduction deadline is February 18th. 2 weeks leading up to the deadline are when typically we see the largest influx of bills, and Marissa's team is going to be extremely busy over the next couple of weeks to look at that. One of the things that we're doing this year is to look at, we're trying to work internally with our staff to trying to systematize our fiscal impact for bill analysis to make sure that we're consistent with what throughout the agency. That, as I presented before, there's a lot of research work being done within the board. Several of our projects, AB 1111, Regional Planning Initiative, AJCC, are all coming, are nearing completion. Data gathering has been completed. We're conducting the analytics, and we expect to have these reports finished by the end of this fiscal year. P2E, when we look at P2E, we're meeting regularly with an internal team as well as a third-party evaluator to set out a framework for evaluation. We're having discussions with CDR to determine an appropriate research strategy, and we're working on setting in place a data dictionary for all our state programs and use that information for developing our Salesforce data platform. Because as we move, as Joel talked about, not only are we moving grant management to the Salesforce, we're also moving some of the data inputting into Salesforce. And as we do that, we want the data to be inputted consistently. And so we're working on what we're referring to as a data dictionary. So very quickly, let me talk about the Good Jobs Challenge. In early November 2021, CWDB met with GoBiz to discuss collaborative opportunities on the EDA's Good Jobs Challenge. The governor's office is very interested in the grant opportunity, and once the state board did not have the capacity to submit an application for the Good Jobs Challenge. So instead, we CWDB and GoBiz worked on providing letters of support to California applicants, and I heard there are 19 applicants from California right now for the Good Jobs Challenge, and set out a criteria in what should be addressed in that letter of support. The criteria were framed in alignment with the comprehensive economic development strategy and the high road principle and approach. So just in terms of timeline, we met in November 20 to asking to gauge local. We did this through a survey, gauge interest in the Good Jobs Challenge. In December, hosted a 30-minute informational call to share the criteria we are considering for applicants asking for a letter of support. There were 75 attendees from LWDB to HRTP partners. Between the 10th of January and 27th of this year, we hosted one-on-one calls with system leads to allow them opportunity to provide an overview of their project, ask questions, and remind them to submit draft project narratives. by the 27th of last month. Currently, projects are being reviewed, and CWDB will meet with GoBiz on February 3rd to review applicants that have been selected to receive a letter of support. Flagging applications that are working on high road initiatives, including organized labor and the hospitality sector. So we're trying to keep in, even though just want to look at which of those 19 applicants are actually targeting and focusing on high road principles and working in these in different areas. So we're also not only reviewing for meeting the criteria for the letter of support, but we're also looking at as future partners in the high road initiatives. We will submit. So the next step we will look at is we intend to have the letter of support will be provided to system leads to submit with their good job application by Thursday, February 10th. And the next step will continue to identify future grant opportunities by keeping a catalog of the projects in alignment with high road principles and approach. The catalog will be shared with our high road team. So with that, this is the end of my report, and if there are any questions.
Thank you, Pradeep. Any comments or questions for Pradeep? Were there any public comments submitted?
No public comments at this time.
And Joseph asked a question, are we able to see who applied?
I assume we could. I could. I don't have it right now with me, but I can get that list if that's Tim. Anything you want to add to that?
No, only that. I mean, you explained it well, Pradeep. The intention there is to give a leg up to projects that are really hitting the high road elements, and as Pradeep mentioned, flagging those that are already high road projects and moving those to the front of the line. And anything where there's organized labor involved is very interesting to us. I think one of the challenges is I know a lot of folks are still working on their applications, and there's some good projects that didn't meet that deadline. And so we're thinking internally about how we can accept some requests for letters even now. And I've talked to a couple of projects. Mr. Chair, could I just quickly hit on Mr. Redlow's question in the chat?
Sure, please.
So we've talked a great deal about equity, particularly in the high road training projects and high road construction careers. And Pradeep and his team have been working really closely with AIDA and the field team, and also with UCLA that did the original evaluation work on the high road training partnerships. There's a lot of material up on our website that came out of that the initial investments, but also the work that UCLA did. In fact, all of the materials that we're using now as tools to build the field of practice and inform the current projects came out of that first evaluation. I should acknowledge that AIDA did a ton of work and wrote a lot of that herself when she first came on board and put form around all that, which was extraordinary. You can see all that on the website. It's very accessible. There's a ton of information. Going forward, Pradeep and his team is, as I said, is creating a framework that includes, the framework inside of that is qualitative and quantitative data. So on the data collection that we use on participants through CalJobs, which is not the right tool for what we need, but Salesforce is going to fix a lot of that. We're using quarterly reports also from the grantees and survey work and other means of getting information from the projects that feed that data in for the evaluation work. Obviously, on the participant side, we're looking at wages and employment. That partly gets at the equity question, demographics certainly. But on the more qualitative side, we're looking at also things like job quality and worker voice and agency and climate resiliency, things that are more difficult to measure on the quantitative side. Partnership structure is really important to us because at the center of each of these high road projects is a partnership that we intend to structure in a way that's sustainable. the system alignment is a big issue. Industry training solutions, making sure that we're measuring the intensity of the industry engagement is really important. So all of this is going into the framework. We're rolling up our sleeves with UCLA right now to get this finalized and applying it to the existing investments, because we've got money out in the field. We've got program going now. And also as you know, we've got a lot more money coming down. So it'll apply to those future investments too. So we can really, I mean, we have a lot of confidence that high road is the right approach, or we wouldn't have been doing it. But we also want to prove it to the rest of the world. So the proof of concept is very important. I mean, this has really caught fire. The feds are talking about it. The White House is talking about it. The Good Jobs Challenge built those high road elements into its funding. So we're the only place, I think, in the nation that's doing this type of really deep evaluation work on it to prove the work. So it becomes not the sideshow, but the center of all workforce development, not just in California, but even on every other planet that we visit. So that's it, Bob. Oh, one last thing. We did schedule, as you know, a briefing on the CalSkills report and the impact analysis that the California Policy Lab did. We want to do the same for this work. So we're looking at April, setting a date in April that will be not during our board meeting, but separate, and invite folks to come in and get down into the weeds with us around this evaluation work. So we're looking forward to that. So April looked okay in terms of the calendar between board meetings. So that's what we're aiming for. We'll get you an exact date on that.
That's great. Thank you, Tim. You know, I want to keep this on a front burner, and I want to make sure that, you know, obviously I agree with the High Roads Training Partnership model and that's effect on equity, but you know, to keep in mind all the different industrial sectors, health, whatever else, and all those statistics together. I mean, that's, you know, while the Democrats are in power, it's a good time to concentrate on equity. We may not have that opportunity again, you know.
I feel it too, and Aida and I talk about this a lot. We all do. You know, there's this is a great time, and we got to take the bull by the horns, because I feel like it's a window of opportunity here, and we're jumping right through it.
That's right. That's right.
With the glass open. I don't know. That doesn't work with the metaphor, but why not?
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Tim. I'll now say, in terms of our other business section, that our next meeting of the full board is scheduled for Wednesday, February 23rd, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Our next executive committee meeting is scheduled for May 4th, with the full board meeting following on the May 18th. At this time, if there's any general public comments, Clemente?
No public comments at this time.
Okay, we can entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Dan.
I'll second, Bruce.
Second by Bruce. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes. Okay, and any abstentions or nays? Okay, thank you, guys. Meeting is adjourned at 11:39 a.m.